So I'm going to jump right into some of the projects, beginning with Three Lives. And this project was, for me, a very important one. There are three women oceanographers who were first in the field. Easter Ellen Cupp, first woman PhD in oceanography, Anita B. Smith Hall, and June Pattullo. Anita was the founder of the first marine biology program in a historically Black college, and June Pattullo was the first physical anthropologist. And it was interesting to find that there was nothing about any of these women in the history outside of a few items in the archives, and that Anita B. Smith Hall was denied the opportunity to defend her dissertation despite having written it. She was the first Black PhD oceanographer here, and Easter Ellen Cupp and June Pattullo were queer and lived with their partners openly during their research at Scripps, and did research with their partners. The projects that are up talk more about these three figures. So here's June Pattullo, who worked in marine oceanography with the support of Walter Munk. Anita Hall, who taught at Hampton University. Joe Riley, who did most of the work on Anita, is not here. This is a portrait by Amy Adler. Amy Adler did a triptych of portraits of these three women that really launched this project, going back not just into the history of portraiture, but how do you reproduce something when the data isn't there, when somebody has become a person of no renown, which is a very important topic of Amy's work, dealing with women of no renown. And how do you represent what is not represented, what happens between photography and drawing. And so the work of Easter Ellen Cupp, who was the first oceanographer to lose her job because she was a woman, she was not kept on at Scripps after her PhD, became the topic of numerous artists in the project. Here's some of Easter Ellen Cupp's drawing. Here are some of her drawings on marine plankton diatoms. This was the first rendering for what was going to be crystal ocean, but became a very dark vision that you see now, the kind of underwater vision that's in the Qualcomm Institute. Some of the pinprick drawings on the right, based on Easter Ellen Cupp's drawings by Judit Hersko. Some of the material we found in the archive, and in the center you see Judit Hersko's detail of a portrait of Dorothy Rosenberry, the life partner of Easter Ellen Cupp, from their home in Kensington, San Diego, where they moved after Easter Ellen Cupp was released from her job and became a science teacher for the rest of her life in a high school. Okay, this is a slide that really interested Jeffrey Stuker, who made a film called Drawn from Marine Plankton Diatoms of the West Coast of North America, and a digital flat case installation, which is at the library. The film is showing here in QI, based on Easter Ellen Cupp's Marine Plankton Diatoms of the West Coast of North America, a University of California book that was the primary atlas of diatoms for 100 years. Here is one of three statuettes by Nicolas G. Miller that interprets the three figures based on ZBrush renderings taken from photographs of the women that accurately reproduces their physique, their clothing. And the library installation, where you can see in the center a beautiful piece by Chanell Stone that really captures the absence of data and the missing figure of these women in history. So I'd like to ask this panel to come up, this group to come up first, just for a quick conversation about the Three Lives Project. Those of you who are in the exhibition and willing to just say a few words about the work. So that would be Jeffrey, Amy, Chanell, Johnnie Chatman. These are going to be like quick lightning panels, very informal, just so that people can see the artists, maybe ask a couple of questions. And Stephania, Stephania Torres-Londono has done a lot of work on this project and will join the panel, join me here and ask some questions. Okay, so maybe we could start with Amy, because Amy, your work was really the inspiration for approaching these three women of no renown. So do you want to say something about your pastels?
Yeah, when Lisa approached me about this project, it was just so rich on so many levels. It's hard to answer this in a really quick few sentences, but it was really interesting piecing together the available photography and trying to kind of get a clear sense of who these women were. And it was only really when I started drawing them that I was completely startled by their personalities that emerged in the drawings. It happened with every single one of them, which doesn't always happen when I'm drawing people. So I just started drawing them, and they literally appeared and wanted to be, articulated and rendered and present. And so when I see these images now all over the place, it's exciting because I think that they are women that were invisible, and now they're highly visible, and it's through the medium of drawing, which is pretty interesting to me on a lot of levels, but I won't get into that right now. So I'm really appreciative to be a part of this. And the installation is really beautiful, and I appreciate being here very much. Thanks.
Chanell, I would love it if you could say something about the way that absence figures in your piece.
Yeah, it's actually nice to dovetail off of what Amy just said, because my piece does the complete opposite. It brings an element that is essential to all these women, which is water. So I made an abstract seascape of the San Diego Ocean to bring it into the space to speak to what's lost beneath the surface. The picture is an ashen gray-black. And because it's the abstraction, it kind of takes time to kind of understand what you're looking at. But it's essentially the shore breaking across the ocean and inverted vertically. So yeah, I was thinking about that, the water, and just literally how archives are lost. The idea of just how astonishing that is, to be honest. And I wanted to bring that into the exhibition. But yeah, I think the exhibition does a great job with moving between figuration and abstraction as well.
Great. Johnnie, maybe you could speak about landscape and your choices to deal with landscape, these women's landscapes.
In the works that I was doing, I was really interested in the relationship that each of these women had with the San Diego coastline, thinking about the physicality of their studies, thinking about the different ways, whether it was looking at the aerial views of waves, whether it was studying off of La Jolla shores and where the pier is down there, or thinking about more of the educational space. So I, over a couple weeks, created a series of images using someone else as a sort of surrogate for these women, placing them into these different spaces so that they are then looking out onto these landscapes. Thinking about what it means to really take in, appreciate, as well as to honor these spaces.
Stephania, you worked most closely with the Pattullo archive, and Jeffrey, you worked very closely with Easter Ellen Cupp's archive, as did Judit Hersko. And so Stephania, maybe you want to lead a discussion about the archive and bringing up the material from the archive directly and reworking with it.
Yeah, so the archives are just so wonderful, and I feel like you definitely get a sense of who these women were just through their materials. So I also have just a general question for everyone. For context, women weren't allowed to go onto research vessels alone until like the 70s. So even though their works are very physical and embodied, there's still kind of a dissection from the ocean. So can you speak about that kind of like absence and kind of disembodied from like material? Yeah. And that question's open to anyone. If you want to go.
Well, I do have this microphone, so I'll say something. maybe it has to do with both the archive and our relationship to the body. My time was spent mostly with Cupp, and I know also Judith has worked significantly with Cupp's drawings, and the drawing practice of Easter Ellen Cupp is what really came to the floor and what was undeniable to me in the archive. Here we have a trove of hand-drawn scientific descriptions of marine diatoms, and before that, freshwater diatoms. And there's graphic languages that Cupp had to come up with in order to make what she firmly believed were scientifically accurate descriptions of the morphologies of these species. And the way that the line work and the continuous tonal shading and the different productions of value in her work were really exciting to me. So in some sense, whatever level of exclusion Cupp faced, somewhat ironically, produced this very much embodied, very much physical trace of her body, directly working with camera lucida attachment to the Lights microscope at Scripps. She was drawing the diatoms from life, and with rare exceptions was taking photographic plates of them, and then sometimes even heavily modifying those with collage techniques. So the thing that came out for me is the residue of something like a practice of drawing, even something like a much older form of mimesis that's happening right at the center of the production of a scientific image. So it's Cupp and Cupp's body that are doing that are in some ways intervening in this otherwise photomechanical and technical space. I know I'm almost nervous to talk about it with Judith right here because she knows much more about this subject than me. For me, it was almost a palpable just example of how that presence of drawing can persist and have a different agency than perhaps what we usually think about it as cut off or opposite to the instrumental reason of a kind of positive science. Maybe I'll hand over to Judith.
And she was in a lot of pain when she couldn't pursue that. So when she lost her position and people kept writing to her and wanting more information about these organisms, which she knew so closely, it was very painful for her. And there are all these letters in the archives where she's answering scientists from Japan, from all over the world, who are seeking her out for that information. And she says, well, I no longer have a microscope or a lab to look at or to further my knowledge. So she would tell them what she already knew. She was also a pioneer of photography under the microscope, which was a sort of segue for me because I include her and everyone else I've researched in these performance lectures where I have an unknown explorer who actually goes to Antarctica disguised as a man on a research trip because women for sure couldn't go on these polar trips. Obviously, these boats were reserved for men, except for maybe whaling boats where the captains might have their wives or something. But scientist women couldn't go on those trips. So all my research has been centered around that absence and the histories of the few women who made it across the oceans, who actually did disguise as men. Easter Cupp, to just come back to her absence was, I don't even know if I know she was involved with the boats that they were getting. There was a schooner that they got. I think she actually got to go out a little bit, not on longer trips, but yeah, she was absolutely fascinating person.
Yeah, in the midst of that denial of formalizing the prohibition against women on ships, June Pattullo and her partner Beth Strong showed up, and they were in World War II marine aerographers who were doing like bomb site photography, which became part of Walter Monk's research platform. So the two of them moved to Oregon and founded a program up at Corvallis. And June Pattullo developed early onset cognitive decline. Beth Strong picked up the work and was hired to, as a professor without the PhD, to continue that work after Beth Strong's death at 51 years old. So this idea of carrying the work forward despite these prohibitions, despite these limitations, is very powerful. I wanted to thank Judit for really doing the foundational research here for all of us, and Jeffrey for digitizing the whole damn archive. Thank you. Jeffrey just came in and digitized everything. So you two have done a really important, groundbreaking work here. Stephania has really dug through the archive and continues this work now as a PhD student with us. And so thank you to all of you for the different years in which you came into the project and carried forward these histories. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nicolas G. Miller can't be here. His statuettes are incredibly awesome. And on the basis of them, Lauryn Smith, an MFA alumnex from the program, has created patterns for clothing that will be sewn into clothing for June, Anita, and Easter at a workshop in November at the library. And we can't thank the UCSD Library enough for hosting the overflow of work that came out of the Three Lives Project.